Hey everyone, Alex here. I'm going to go through 4 things that if you experience anxiety, you're also likely to have. So you can understand the anxiety you experience better and begin or accelerate your journey to healing and releasing it. So some of these you might already know about, and some of these you might be surprised to find out about or might be completely new to you, so stick around. So, number 1, if you experience anxiety, you're also likely to have identification to anxious, fearful thinking. You are aware of thoughts, right? But more accurately, if you go to your actual experience, you'll see that there is this wide open space of awareness. And within this awareness, thoughts appear and disappear, right? And so many of these thoughts have a sense of self in them. Perhaps most of them do. They have a I or a me in the thoughts. So, for example, the thought might appear, I am worried that things might go terribly wrong. And you identify with the I in that thought. Or the thought might appear, something bad might happen to me. And you identify with the me, the sense of self in that thought. And then when you identify with and you believe in these thoughts, that generates more anxiety. You may find yourself to be in your head almost all of the time, spending most of your time with your attention contracted down onto thinking as opposed to the world around you. And so, to break the identification, you must be knowingly the awareness that the thoughts appear within, as opposed to forgetting and having your attention completely contracted down onto the thinking and believing yourself to be the sense of self in the thinking. When you are knowingly awareness, the identification to the thoughts is automatically broken. Number 2, if you experience anxiety, you're also likely to have unnecessary activation of the sympathetic nervous system, the stress response, the fight, flight, freeze response. So, this response is only supposed to be activated at certain times, like when escaping danger, or facing a momentary challenge, or when doing deep work that requires a lot of alertness, or when doing intense exercise, or moving towards something that you're excited about with energy. But if you experience anxiety, you're likely to have activation of this response at times when it's not necessary or just completely inappropriate, like at times where you should be fully relaxed, or perhaps even in the middle of the night, and it's keeping you up at night and you can feel energy surges around your body. So you may feel discomfort in the body a lot of the time, which is a result of this unnecessary activation of the system and the muscle tension, adrenaline release, cortisol release, and biological readiness that it triggers. So, controlled short term activation of this stress response, like intense exercise or breath work and things like that, is actually helpful, is actually healthy. Long term chronic activation of it, though, leads to poor mental health, illness, disease, and a shortened lifespan. So, learning to regulate your nervous system and learning to switch on the body's calming system, the parasympathetic response, is really going to help with this. And so is releasing the stuck emotional energy and traumas that are supporting this unnecessary sympathetic activation and bodily discomfort. Number 3, if you experience anxiety, you're also likely to have stuck emotional energy or trauma in the body that has your body stuck in a chronic fight, flight, freeze response. Learning ways to turn down the sympathetic response and turn up the parasympathetic response is certainly going to get you a lot of headway. And knowing yourself as your deeper self, as this awareness, is the foundation for everything. But it doesn't exclude the need for the emotional work. Having powerful conversations that also work on a somatic, bodily level, or other trauma release methods to get into that trapped trauma energy in the body and release it. Dr. Gabor Mate said, trauma isn't what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you. It's not the event that's the trauma, it's what happens inside of you as a result of the event. And that's so important to understand, because you may feel like you've forgiven everyone in your past and all these old painful situations on a mental, cognitive level, and you may well have done. But the trauma and the stuck emotional energy is deeper than the thinking. It's deeper in the brain than the prefrontal cortex, with emotional associations deeper within the limbic system and the body. And so working on the level of the body and the nervous system is essential to anxiety release too. Number 4, if you experience anxiety, you're also likely to have a belief in being fundamentally separate from the universe. As in, you have a belief that you are just this body and mind. When we believe that we are just the body and mind, that generates a whole lot of anxiety, because the body and the mind are temporary, right? And subject ultimately to illness, decay, and annihilation. And our materialist culture, with all its materialist dogma, reinforces this. There is this common belief that we are like this flicker of consciousness being produced by a brain, contained within this sack of meat, walking around in an objective, dead, dumb world made of matter, which is essentially what? Microscopic balls bouncing around to predetermined mechanical paths. And the idea that actually there is no evidence that consciousness is produced by a material brain, and that there is a separate objective world that's fundamentally outside of consciousness, well, that idea is often seen as a bit out there, in the same way that the idea of a spherical Earth seemed a bit out there in a world where the majority believed it was flat. So you must investigate your experience to reveal that what you essentially are is beyond the body and the mind. Your actual experience is not that awareness is in the body or the mind. Your actual experience is that the body and the mind are an appearance in awareness, in what you essentially are. And that it's timeless and ever present. And although the body and the thinking mind are subject to decay and disappearance, what you essentially are as pure consciousness remains here, untouched, never having been born, and can never die. And so it started raining here, and that concludes the video. Before you go, enrollment is now open for the Awaken Aware program. This program is for you if you want to overcome anxiety or negative thinking that's been controlling your life. It's for you if you're open to science-based tools and a non-duality informed holistic approach to deepening peace, clarity, and revealing the inner freedom of your true nature. And it's for you if perhaps you want to do something that positively influences the world, but realize that outer change starts from within, so that you can engage in the world from a place of peace and love, and therefore do things that bring more peace and love into the world. So, if that interests you, head over to speaktoalex.com, where there'll be a quick quiz to fill in about your desires and challenges, and then you can book a time for us to speak about whether it will be a good fit. And if so, we'll take it from there. That's speaktoalex.com. I better head out now because I'm going to get absolutely soaked on the way home. Peace and blessings to you. Love you all. Peace.